Okay, well, good evening and welcome everybody to tonight's SHFM Kitchen to Kitchen Cooking at Home Live with SHFM. I want to thank everybody for joining us on our virtual cooking class, where you will elevate your home cooking with SHFM's community of chefs. I want to say a special thank you to Sodexo for putting this week's and next week's sessions together for us. I'd also like to offer a special welcome to the new leadership at Sodexo, Mike Gillespie, Joe Gansey, and David Bailey, and welcoming them to the organization and spending some time with us. And I want to just mention that during these challenging times, it's really nice to take a break and connect with the SHFM family in celebration of cooking and eating together. So before we begin a little housekeeping, we do want to make sure that you get the most out of this experience. Everyone is on mute. Just to keep the background noise to a minimum. Our host chefs will answer your questions live along the way. If you need to ask a question, please virtually raise your hand and we will unmute you. You may ask a question in the chat window as well. And lastly, the session is being recorded so it can be played on demand for the SHFM website and YouTube channel later this week. So now let's dive into this virtual cooking class and learn how to make Turkey Tetrazzini step by step. We have two phenomenal chef presenters today, and to tell you more about the session and our guest chef, it's my pleasure to announce our host for the evening, Linnea Weston with Sodexo. Over to you, Linnea.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kitchen to Kitchen with SHFM. My name is Linnea, and I'm with Sodexo, and I would love to turn it over to my amazing chefs, my team, and so Chef Melody. It's you.
Thank you, Linnea. So my name is Chef Melody, and I have been with Sodexo for almost 19 years now. I work with Sodexo as an executive chef, area executive chef, and also part of our artisan restaurant collection. So today I'm going to make a champagne bowler in June. Now I made up that name, and we can talk about that when I start, but it's a nice, refreshing summer drink, and I don't know where you guys are all at, but where I'm at, it's really hot. I think it's going to be nice for today. And then Chef Alicia, you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to do?
Sure. Hi, my name's Alicia. I'm also a Sodexo chef, part of the Artisan Restaurant Collection. I'm a little newer than Melody. I've been with the company for about a year and a half, and I'm the chef at LinkedIn in San Francisco. And today I'm going to show you guys how to make a Turkey Tetrazzini. It's delicious, comforting, really family friendly. So I'll do that after Melody gets a drink in your hand.
Yay. Okay, so we're going to start. I hope anyone at home that's going to make this along, I hope you have everything ready. I wrote my beautiful recipe right here on my whiteboard. You need a fresh apricot, 4 cherries, simple syrup, cognac or brandy, white wine, and sparkling wine. So you start by getting your fruit. You just need 1 apricot. And the way I like to do it, let's see this shot right here. So hold it down on your cutting board, pop it right in the middle long ways until you hit the stone inside the pit, and you just kind of move around the apricot like that. Kind of like you would an avocado if you've done that before. And then you twist it open, pit inside. And usually, especially right now when they're in season, it's really easy to take that pit out. Just pop it inside. You can just rough chop this maybe in quarters.
Chef Melody, if our guests do not have an apricot, is there another stone fruit that you would recommend for this beverage?
Stone fruit, well, peaches, of course. Those are one of my favorites. Straight cherries, if you have cherries. But I'll tell you my cherry story. Where I'm at right now, I'm right down the road from Brentwood, California. So you also want to start doing all 4 of your cherries the same way around the pit. So we sent someone out, since I'm sequestered, we sent someone out to go pick cherries because you have a pick your own cherry farms all around this area. But apparently everyone was picking cherries and all the cherries are gone. So luckily someone mailed a gift package to one of my coworkers, and she gave me, I got 6 whole cherries. So the whole apricot goes inside of your shaker, along with 2 cherries. And I heard that Chef Alicia is doing this along with me. Is that true, Chef?
It is. I put all my stuff in my shaker already, and I didn't have any stone fruit, so I used strawberries because I have these incredible strawberries.
Oh, nice. So that leads me to the next part of my answer to Linnea's question. The original champagne bowler is made with strawberries. So that was perfect. It's like you knew this. So once you have all of your fruit inside, oh, I forgot about the 2 shots. So I'm going mostly on the close shot here. So once you have your fruit inside, right there at the bottom, you get a muddler. So it doesn't have to be a fancy muddler. You can even use, chop it up a little bit smaller and just do a spoon or.
If someone has a mortar and pestle at home, Chef, would that work okay?
Oh, heck yes. Yes, it would. So you want to get some juice in there. Muddle, muddle, muddle. And then you grab your simple syrup. You need 2 ounces. And I'm going to eyeball my 2 ounces. Can you see it? Now it looks like, so what happened with my simple syrup, as you can see, is I stepped away from the stove for a bit and it thickened up a little bit more than I wanted. So a simple syrup is equal part sugar and water, or any sweetener, and honey. Sometimes I do maple syrup, which is that would be really good with this actually. And you just cook it on the stove in a little pot until the sugar dissolves and it gets slightly thick. This is a little bit thicker than I wanted, but that's okay. It'll still be delicious. So you've got your fruit all muddled in there. And then you're going to add ice. I have the small baby ice, but it can be cubed ice, whatever you have at home. Now it's time for the good stuff. We're going to start with, again, you can either do cognac or brandy. And I happen to have this wonderful apple brandy that's local to where I live. I live right outside of Sacramento. It's J.J. Pfister Distillery. And right now, instead of distilling more spirits, they're doing hand sanitizer for everyone. So I thought that was kind of cool.
They make a wonderful gin as well. That Chef Melody is the sweetest chef in the whole wide world, and she loves to give people gin gifts. So get on her good side and get some J.J. Pfister gin too. It's delicious.
Yes, I'm not a gin drinker, and that was pretty darn good. They've won awards for their gin. So 1 ounce of your brandy or cognac. 2 ounces of white wine. Again, I'm trying to go local, so I got, which I've never heard of, Dancing Crow Vineyards from Lake County. I have to admit, I didn't know Lake County made wine, but it's nostalgic for me because I used to live there briefly. So 2 ounces of your wine. Could be any wine you want. Sweet or dry, I think, is fine, because if you like sweet, it'll be even sweeter with all the fruit and the syrup in there. But if you like more, a little bit less sweet, you can pull back on the syrup and use a drier wine. And then you want to put your lid on your shaker, or even if you don't have a shaker, you got a nice long spoon, you can stir it up. Oh, you shake it.
How long should we shake, Chef Melody?
Shake until you can't shake no more, Linnea. I don't know, a good 15 to 30 seconds. And then
So your hand is like super cold?
It's actually, my hand is really cold right now. I was just thinking that. Now you can, oh, look how beautiful that is. I love it. So the cherries are making it nice and pink. And then, in my mind, you can use as many cherries or apricots to garnish if you want to do some really thin apricot slices, or like me, I like to float things, so I'm just going to float my cherry in there. And then we can go to the wide shot, I guess, for the cheers, if everyone's ready. Cheers, Chef. You got yours ready?
Yay! Cheers!
Love it. Oh,
Woo!
I forgot one part. I forgot, you guys. Sparkling wine. So you don't want to shake it up because it's sparkling, it's bubbly. You just want to add it on the top. There you go. I knew something was missing as soon as I took a sip. There we go. Now cheers. Yay.
Yay!
Oh yeah, that made it. Beautiful. So I made this drink to pair with Chef Alicia's Turkey Tetrazzini, which I love bringing retro old school stuff back. Also, it's super affordable. Everything I bought here was very affordable too. It pairs well to cut through the nice creamy thick sauce that Chef's going to make in her dish. You can also make it family friendly by cutting out all of the alcohol and adding in sparkling water, or just the fruit muddled with some Sprite, or just sparkling soda by itself. I think it would be great. So Chef, are you ready to show us what to do?
I am.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Chef Melody.
Hooray! Okay, so I've gotten all my mise en place for Turkey Tetrazzini ready, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of it, because it's a really fascinating dish. It really is a truly American dish, because it's a hybrid of all these different things that some are classic, some are not. So the base is a tetrazzini, which is a Parmesan cream with wine. And the history tells tetrazzini was created at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco. There's some people who say New York, but obviously I'm going to side with San Francisco. And it was created for guests with children and families. And it's whimsical. I really love it. And you can do a huge variety with it. So I have a turkey thigh, which I actually braised yesterday. So I could use the stock in the recipe. But it is a perfect recipe if you have leftover rotisserie chicken, leftover roasted pork. If you're vegetarian, you just want to make it with mushrooms, throw some tofu for protein. It's a really flexible dish. So I'm going classic with turkey. And so we can go through the ingredients. I have about 2 tablespoons of butter, a couple tablespoons of freshly chopped garlic, some white wine. And for this, I would definitely go with a brighter wine. You never want to cook with a wine you wouldn't drink, but there's a lot of cheap wine out there. I think you saw Melody use a can for her cocktail, and I'm a huge fan of canned wines. California especially is making some fantastic ones, and they're great for cooking because it's a smaller vessel, so you don't have to buy a big bottle of wine for a recipe. So I'm using a Pinot Grigio because that acid will go really well with all the rich cheese that we have. We're going to add about a 1/4 cup of flour to all of that. That will help thicken the sauce. I have about a couple cups of mushroom, and today I'm using a cremini mushroom. Some grocery stores, you might see them referred to as baby portobello, baby bello. I find that they're a lot more flavorful than a button mushroom, just a little darker flavor. You can use portobello mushrooms, any mixture, or if you're not a mushroom person, leave it out. If your kids are really picky, this would be really nice with celery, like a really simple, plain flavor. And so we have our shredded cooked turkey, our delicious turkey broth, some frozen peas. And since it's summertime, you can use fresh Blue Lake beans, you can use fresh snap peas, whatever you have available. Sometimes I'm very nostalgic and I love myself some frozen peas. And then we have about 3/4 pound of spaghetti that I've cooked already. So if you haven't cooked your spaghetti already, get that water going and you can cook it as we start our sauce. And this is a thin spaghetti. So I cooked it about 6 minutes. I want to keep it al dente, especially because we're going to put it in and cook it with the sauce. Now, a traditional tetrazzini is cooked in this creamy sauce and then put in a casserole dish with breadcrumbs and then baked in the oven, much like you would mac and cheese. I'm going to forego that step since it's a live cooking show and I don't think you wanted me to watch it bake for half an hour, but that's totally an option if you have breadcrumbs and you want to do it because it turns out really well. And then, of course, I have a little fresh parsley because I like to garnish really rich, creamy dishes like that with parsley. So If anyone has any questions about the ingredients, ask away. And if not, we can get started cooking.
I have a question. Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So would you recommend that the wine that you use to make the champagne bowler might be the same wine that you can use in that dish?
I think it would work so well in this dish, and that way you don't waste any.
Awesome. Thank you.
And if you don't drink, you can, if you want to avoid alcohol, you can leave it out altogether. And what I would do is finish the sauce with either a little lemon zest or lemon juice, just to sort of brighten it up. But since it's very acidic, you would want to add that at the end for that little pop of this acidity. So, yeah. So I have my nice, beautiful Le Creuset pan. I pretty much do everything in this. Except for meats, which I have a cast iron pan. And so the super side. Old stoves, old San Francisco apartment. Cooking at home. Okay, so we're gonna start with our butter. So again, like 2 tablespoons. I'm married to an Irishman, so I use Kerrygold butter. And we're gonna let that melt. And then we'll throw our garlic in and start that. So I'll do this part of the process over high heat. I wanna get that garlic cooking. I wanna get those flavors going. And then we'll cook the mushrooms.
So Chef, you have delicious butter, which I think I would use too, but is there another fat that you think would go really well with the tetrazzini?
Totally. I mean, you can use a neutral oil, like I wouldn't use extra virgin, but just like a regular olive oil. Grapeseed oil is a great, very neutral oil if you're looking to avoid sort of the saturated fats of delicious butter. So yeah, any fat will do her. But you do want that 2 tablespoons worth, because we're going to be cooking a good amount with, once we add the mushrooms in. We want a little fat to coat those and get those cooking. So my butter started to bubble, and that really gets that garlic aroma going. Like one of the most favorite smells on the planet. I did private chefing for a little bit, and even if I wasn't using it in a dish, I always put a pot with a little butter and a little garlic, just because it fills the house with such an amazing aroma. People would get so excited, like, what are you making? Oh my God, it smells so incredible. And it's just butter and garlic. Okay, so now things are bubbling. I can definitely smell the garlic cooking. This is when you get anxious and you just want to start throwing stuff in there, but don't, because you don't want to interrupt the cooking process. Because if you add your mushrooms, which contain a lot of liquid, you're going to really disrupt the sautéing of the butter, and that's really a good base of flavor for this recipe. I think a lot of cooking mistakes happen when people get too eager. With baking, it's because you don't measure, and with savory cooking, it's because you become an eager beaver and you don't wait it out. I often dance. I dance it out, my waiting times. Bubble, dance, bubble dance, bubble dance. So now, full of aroma, I'm gonna grab my mushrooms. So my garlic's definitely cooking. I see just a teeny bit of brown, so I'm gonna hit it with my mushrooms because I don't want it to brown too much.
And today you have baby bells?
Yeah, I really like that flavor, but you know, the only mushroom I really wouldn't recommend is a shiitake. I think a shiitake would just be weird. But cremini, portobellos, I would remove the gills, or you have a really dark sauce. Or a button mushroom, trumpet mushroom would be great. And it's at this point I'm going to start seasoning. And I'm using kosher salt and fresh black pepper. And we'll season as we go. And then, of course, at the end, we'll taste.
That's a good cooking tip, Chef. The season as you go to build that flavor.
Build that flavor. Yes, it's all about layers of flavor when you're cooking, especially a dish like this that has quite a few ingredients. So as my mushrooms start to brown, I'm going to throw my flour in, and we're making a very simple roux. Like a classic roux is just a fat, either oil or butter, and equal parts with flour. This we're really using just the flour as a thickener, but I do want to cook it a little bit before I add my wine. So again, about a quarter cup. So it's actually a little bit more than the amount of fat we put in.
Those look like they're getting so nice and coated, Chef.
Nice and coated, and the flour's cooking. You can kind of smell, you really want to avoid that completely raw flour in your sauce base. So I'm just cooking and stirring constantly because you don't want to brown. We're not making Cajun food up in here. We're making just a really nice white wine creamy sauce. So we don't want things to get too brown. And you'll smell it. The flour will start to smell toasted. And the second you smell that smell, which I am, I'm gonna throw my wine in. Continue stirring. You want to avoid any lumpy bits. And you'll see it gets pretty thick right away. So I'm going to add my turkey and my stock. The joys of cooking at home in front of a camera. How many times will you see the back of my head? So now I got my turkey, my mushrooms, and my stock in there. And now I'm going to let it simmer for a little bit. This will finish cooking the mushrooms and then start thickening the sauce. This is an excellent time, since our meat's already fully cooked, to just give things a little preliminary taste. Good. A little bit more salt. This is why we season and we taste as we go. So now, make sure we're on high again. So we're gonna let this simmer for a little bit and let the liquid reduce. Now, if you haven't cooked your pasta, this is a good time to do it. And if you have, chill out. And if you cooked your pasta ahead, like I did, it's always a good trick is to rinse it thoroughly in cold water and then toss it and mix it really thoroughly with your hands with a little bit of olive oil or neutral oil. And that will prevent you from having like a total pasta ball, which is completely impossible to unball. So you really want to make sure once your cooked pasta is cool that you toss it with oil. So that way it's perfect. It's a perfect method if you're making a macaroni salad. But anytime you cook pasta ahead of time, you want to cool it and toss it with oil so you don't get the.
So, Chef, you used thin spaghetti today. What other kinds of noodles or pasta would be delicious with this?
Anything. I think a rigatoni or a penne would be really fun, especially if you're going to bake it. Fettuccine works really well. If you got little kids, the bow ties, of course, I think would be really cute. Perfect size for little mouths and hands. So it's really, easy peasy. You could even use the mac and cheese or an elbow macaroni and make it a really fancy type mac and cheese. Now, as you see, it's just simmering away. It smells amazing. I can still smell the wine. I'm beginning to smell the aroma of the mushrooms. And since I braised my turkey in the stock that I'm using, that's called a double stock. I reinforced the flavor and fortified it with meat. Pretty classical term. When you do things like the consomme, you're actually making a second stock. You're clarifying it and making it look really beautiful, but you're adding those layers of flavor to it as well, which is sort of like the basis of classic cuisine, which is why I think this dish is so fun, because though it is like a really super traditional American dish, it does have those sort of seeps of culinary tradition, like basic sauce making and the layering of flavors. And since I'm a chef, I'm a huge dork and I love that stuff. And this again, this is where mistakes are made, is you just want it, you're so excited to make it, and you just want to throw everything else in. But you gotta let your sauce reduce a little bit, and really develop the flavors, because as you reduce your liquid, you're evaporating water. So that means you're concentrating the flavor of salt, everything, the wine that you put in there, your seasoning. So you're reducing that flavor and concentrating it and making it a lot more delicious, which is why you don't want to go crazy with the salt and pepper at this point, because it will taste a little saltier because you're evaporating water from it. I cook a lot with my hands, if you haven't noticed. When I'm creating recipes, I'll often like type it out and be like, well, then you need a little crunchy bit to put on the soft bit, and then you put it all together and you eat it. So it's a visual.
Chef, what are some of your other favorite things to make that that have a similar cooking style that need to be reduced and build the same types of layer of flavor?
You know, braises, I think if you ask any chef, their favorite technique for cooking meat is braising. I actually just did a recipe in honor of Pride Month from Jeremiah Tower, who's a really well-known San Francisco chef. And it was a very classic technique with short ribs. So you sear them again, really patiently, getting that nice color. You reduce it with aromatics and wine, and then you add your stock, and then you put it in the oven, braise it for a few hours, and then pull it all out, take the short ribs out, skim the fat off the stock, and you make this beautiful crystal clear braise with all this developed flavor and collagen from the short ribs. So I love doing braises. I love braising chicken, making chicken curry, and you know, totally different cuisine, but same sort of techniques, layering in the flavor. You know, curries, you'll use coconut milk and, you know, kaffir lime and lemongrass and garlic and ginger, but you'll simmer and you'll add those ingredients at different times. So it's all sort of, you know, the same practice, this sort of respect for the ingredient and the patience. So now,
that sounds delicious, Chef.
Yay! So now my sauce is looking good. You can see it's definitely gotten a lot thicker. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit and start with adding my cream cheese first.
If anyone cooking along wants to share their video and show Chef Alicia their pot, we'd love to see it. If you have it, we'd love to see it.
Now we're gonna sort of aggressively stir the cream cheese so it kind of breaks up. Probably would have been a good idea if I cut it into little cubes before I chucked it in there, but I didn't. So I'm just gonna stir it so it gets nice and smooth. If you have little chunks in, we're gonna continue to stir in other ingredients. So you don't need to obsessively stir. But now you can see it's nice, thick, and for the most part incorporated. So we can add our other cheeses. So I'm adding Parmesan and Havarti, but you can use like Monterey Jack, you can use mozzarella. If you like it spicy, add pepper jack. That could be good too. I like how nutty and creamy Monterey Jack cheese is. So we're just gonna stir it a little bit more. So you can see it is a very hearty, homey dish. It's not for the lighthearted, it ain't for the healthy, but it tastes so good. So now most of my cheese is melted. You want to make sure the majority of the melting has happened, because the second you throw your spaghetti, which is now room temperature, or chilled if you did it the day before, it will slow down the cooking process and you'll end up with little cheesy lumps. So now I'm going to add my cooked spaghetti. And at this point, I'll add my peas too. Because we're done cooking. Now we're just heating the pasta and the peas. At this point, I'll probably switch to tongs. Helps get everything in there. It looks so cheesy, so good. So at this point, you would want to, if you were going to bake it, you would want to make sure that your spaghetti's hot, and then put it into a casserole dish and top it with breadcrumbs. And then you could bake it at 350 for about half an hour. It really depends on your oven. Mine is ancient and runs cool, and it's like someone kind of breathing on food. So it takes like twice the amount of time. So it really depends. And what you're doing is just making a nice crust with the breadcrumbs, since your pasta is already hot. And if you're not baking it like us, we're just going to make sure that it's hot. We're going to do one final taste. It tastes incredible, but I like that black pepper, so I'm going to add a little bit more. I love that sound. Okay, we'll get our garnish ready. Our handy dandy pot. Oh my God. It looks so good.
Wow, you're making me
Yay.
hungry. It looks so good.
And then this is fresh Italian parsley. You could use chives, scallion would be great. Or if you have littles in your house that don't like anything green, you can leave that off. And there we are, Turkey Tetrazzini. Ta-da!
Looks absolutely gorgeous, Chef. Does anyone have any questions for Chef Alicia? If anyone cooking along have any questions about their dish?
Looking at my screen.
I know, me too.
Or any cooking questions in general.
And you can just raise your hand virtually and I'll unmute you.
Cooking questions. Chef Alicia, what kind of deliciousness did you use in your champagne bowler?
So I used cognac and then strawberries, because I went to the market actually on Sunday. So we had some overripe, almost gone strawberries, which actually broke down perfectly. And then I'm also having a delicious champagne from a can. This is my favorite canned wine. They do champagne, they do a white wine, which I use for cooking, they do a rosé, and they do a nice Pinot, which I love for braising, because I'm not a huge red wine drinker. So this is like a perfect amount of wine to marinate like 5 pounds of short ribs. So I'm a huge fan of the canned wine.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I'm here with Chef Gustavo. And Chef Gustavo, do you have a question for Chef Alicia?
Hi, Gustavo.
Hello, Chef Alicia. How are you? Can you
Good,
do
how
that
are
with
you? How's
gnocchis? Can you do with gnocchis?
Hmm?
Can you do that dish with gnocchi?
Ooh, yes, I would. I would definitely, that would be great, and it would be so good baked. I think it would be incredible with gnocchi. It would actually be good with like lasagna noodles and layer it all together and bake it. But I'm a huge fan of gnocchi.
I know what I'm having for dinner.
Ooh!
Thank you. Good job, Chef.
Thank you.
So do we have any questions for Chef? I see someone has raised their hand. I'm going to unmute you. You may have to unmute yourself as well, but I have unmuted you from this end. So Maria?
Hi, this is Maria, and Chef, it looks fantastic. How would you make this dish into a keto style dish?
A keto style dish. Woo! That's difficult. Well, I guess you could do it with zucchini noodles. And then for a thickener, I guess we could remove the flour, and you could either just do like a highly reduced, just do a reduction, or there are now some like mushroom thickeners or you could use like the cornstarch. I don't know how that rates on the keto, but this would be wonderful with zucchini noodles, or even just with, if you didn't want to purchase the pre-made zucchini noodles, to just like thinly slice summer squash and throw it in right at the end. That would be incredible. And they're so good right now.
Would, like, I know that heavy cream is really keto friendly. So you
could cream it up, and actually that would be a great way to avoid the thickener, because you can add heavy cream, reduce it, and then almost like mount it with the cream cheese, and you'd get like a super creamy sauce without any starch.
Oh my God, that sounds so amazing.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was great. I loved what you did here. So I appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Maria. It looks like we have a question in chat from Charlene, and Charlene's question is about the cocktail, and she wants to know, if we do not have any stone fruit, can you recommend an alternative fruit that will not ruin the drink? Chef Melody. Chef Melody is muted, and can we unmute her?
Uh-oh. Let me get there. Find her on the list. Give me 1 second here. There we go. You may have to do something on your end. There you go.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay! So it was, if you don't have stone fruit, what else could you use?
Yes, Chef.
Awesome. So the original champagne bowler was made with strawberries. So strawberries, I think, are something that you can find pretty easily in most supermarkets. And these ones that I have right now, I can smell them from here. They're amazing. You can get them at the roadside stands. Like I said, supermarkets, anywhere. Let's see, what else could you use? No stone fruit, no stone fruit. Actually, I almost had to use fresh frozen cherries today because of my cherry debacle. I was saying earlier that everyone picked the cherries, and then you pick your own cherries stuff in the city where I am, and I almost didn't have any, so I had a backup of frozen cherries as well. So you can also, they have frozen fresh and organic too, stone fruit, strawberries. You could do blackberry, would be really good in the summertime. Almost any fruit, really. I think the apple brandy that I used, or even with cognac, you can use almost any fruit.
Thank you, Chef. And then I see a question from Kathy's iPad that's asking Chef Alicia, how about almonds? And do you think that would add to the dish?
Almonds, I think that would be lovely. I like to add toasted nuts to a lot of dishes for texture. And you can also, there's a garnish called gremolata, which is made with like parsley and fresh zest and garlic. You could make like an almond gremolata and like chop the almonds with some chopped parsley and citrus zest. And on top of this dish, because it's so rich and creamy, that would be fantastic. I think it's a great idea.
Ooh, delicious. That sounds really good.
Any more questions for our chefs? Well, I think you guys did such a terrific job in presenting that we don't have any more questions. So thank you to Linnea, Alicia, and Melody for a really great session. You guys are so personable, and we really appreciate your efforts here. And I want to say a special thank you also to Sodexo for allowing you guys to do this for us. And before we sign off, I want to remind everyone we have some upcoming virtual events. If you haven't already signed up, you should definitely do that. Next Tuesday on the 23rd, we have Industry Insights brought to you by our SHFM Industry Advisory Board, where you will hear about the future of work, predictions for a new abnormal. And a week from today, we will have another cooking session from our friends at Sodexo on Thursday, June 25th. Where we'll be learning to make an adobe rubbed fish and homemade tortillas, which I'm very interested in, as well as salsa. So thank you again, chefs, for doing this. We really appreciate that. And thank you all for joining. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Cheers.
Goodbye, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.